Imagine you achieve the biggest, most ambitious milestone of your entire career.
Oh, like finally getting that massive promotion.
Right. You get the promotion, or maybe you launch the company, you write the book, whatever that huge thing is for you.
Hmm.
But there's a catch, and it's a big one. You are physically forbidden from telling a single soul about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No Instagram posts, no subtle LinkedIn updates, no celebratory calls to your parents. You can't even casually bring it up at dinner parties.
That sounds agonizing for most people.
Totally. And the question is, would it still feel like a massive achievement? Or would the victory feel completely hollow without an audience there to applaud it?
Right.
Today's source material argues that if your answer is the latter, if it feels hollow,
Yeah.
then you are living a deeply unnatural and fundamentally ugly life.
That scenario immediately forces us to confront a really uncomfortable truth about modern life.
Yeah.
We have slowly replaced the actual experience of living with, like, the performance of living.
Oh, definitely.
We curate our personal brands, we network relentlessly, and we basically optimize every waking hour. And it's all in this frantic attempt to manufacture a sense of peace or, accomplishment.
All right, and it never really works, does it?
No, it doesn't. The profound irony is that this relentless accumulation of external validation usually just leaves us feeling way more isolated.
Yeah.
And exhausted.
And that exhaustion is exactly why we are taking this specific deep dive today. Our mission is to explore a radically different, incredibly grounding blueprint for finding peace in our chaotic world.
And it's such a necessary blueprint right now.
It really is. And it is aimed straight at you, the listener, whether you are overwhelmed by the demands of social media or stressed out about your career trajectory or just, suffocating under the pressure to constantly perform.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate teacher for how to cure this modern anxiety isn't some Silicon Valley productivity guru. It's actually a simple flower.
Right. So to guide us through this, we're looking at a really fascinating essay from April 2010 by a writer named Chua Feng. It's titled, "Being Natural is the Most Beautiful Way to Be Human." And we're reading this in a translation edited by Kinyu.
Okay.
It's a text that deliberately looks past all the noise of human society entirely. It tries to find the answers to our most deeply human problems by observing the mechanics of the natural world.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core premise of this text establishes a very stark baseline, right?
It does. Very skirt.
It says the way of the greatest creator is completely synonymous with the way of nature. The author is essentially saying that when you emulate the natural world, you are on the right path, and when you deviate from it, you suffer.
Yeah, that fundamental dichotomy is established right from the opening lines.
Mm-hmm.
The text posits that being natural is inherently beautiful. Consequently, anything that is deceitful or contrived or excessively artificial.
Like forcing yourself to be something you're not.
Exactly. Anything that forces you to violate your innate biological and psychological nature, all of that deviates from the path. It is, by definition, ugly.
Wow. Ugly. That's a strong word.
It is. And it's a massive paradigm shift from how we usually operate in society.
Right.
I mean, we tend to view artificiality, like wearing a professional mask at the office or faking enthusiasm at a networking event. We view that as a highly necessary survival tool.
Yeah, but that idea of the social mask actually requires a ton of caloric energy to maintain.
Oh, absolutely.
I like to think of it like running a software emulator on a computer. Like if you have a Mac, but you force it to run a Windows operating system just so you can play a specific game.
Your computer's battery drains twice as fast.
Exactly. It overheats, it's exhausting its processing power just translating the fake environment. And the text is essentially arguing that human beings are doing this to our brains every single day through social masking.
What's fascinating here is how the text uses the natural world to show us an alternative operating system, one that doesn't drain the battery.
The flower.
Right. The author's primary example of perfection is the flower. And the language used in the essay is highly reverent. It actually refers to flowers as Buddhas and the spirits of the greatest creator.
Which is such a beautiful image.
It really is. And the reasoning is rooted entirely in their behavior. A flower blooms naturally, following its own internal programming.
Right.
And it does this whether it is planted in the middle of a bustling, meticulously manicured royal garden or if it's completely alone in a desolate wilderness.
It doesn't look around to see who's watching.
Yup.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need an Instagram account to validate its blooming, and it certainly isn't checking every 5 minutes to compare its engagement metrics to the rose bush next door.
Exactly.
But wait, I have to push back a little here on behalf of anyone listening who feels the weight of the real world.
Fair enough.
Because, I mean, it is incredibly easy for a flower to be unbothered.
Sure.
It doesn't have a boss. It doesn't have a mortgage. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to navigate toxic office politics to get a promotion just so it can afford groceries for its family.
Right.
So how does the author expect humans who live in a highly complex, high-stakes economic web to actually emulate a plant?
Well, that is the natural friction point when we try to apply philosophical metaphors to modern life, right?
Yeah, it always feels a bit disconnected.
But the text isn't ignoring the reality of human struggles.
Oh.
It's not pretending we don't have literal bills to pay.
Okay.
Rather, it's diagnosing the root of our psychological suffering as a symptom of comparison and artificiality, not the struggle itself.
How interesting.
Look closely at the flower in the poor soil. It still has to survive. It biologically struggles to reach for sunlight and pulls scarce water from the dry earth.
Right, it's not like it's having an easy time.
Exactly. But it doesn't waste its limited energy being angry at the soil. It doesn't look at the flower and the rich soil across the field and ruminate on how unfair life is.
Ah, I see. So the biological struggle to survive is natural, but the resentment we layer on top of that struggle, that is the artificial part.
Precisely the point.
The psychological self-torture of feeling like a failure because someone else has it easier, that is uniquely human.
It is. We force these states of envy and grievance upon ourselves.
Wow.
The author is challenging us to recognize that while we cannot always control our soil, our economic conditions, our bosses, our societal constraints, we are entirely responsible for the artificial layers of resentment we add to our daily survival.
Right, because when we constantly compare ourselves to others, we dedicate our cognitive resources to monitoring their progress.
Instead of fueling our own growth.
Yeah. But realizing you don't need to monitor the garden around you naturally shifts the focus back to your own innate traits. The text argues that observing nature cures this sickness of comparison by teaching us to dismantle the ego, specifically through blooming freely and embracing uniqueness.
Yeah, the text is very clear on that.
It explicitly states that whether you are a peony or a wildflower, whether you are red or white, as long as you bloom fully in accordance with your own nature, you are living without regret.
Right.
Every being has a distinct trait and a unique path endowed by the greatest creator, meaning there is zero biological or spiritual need to imitate anyone else.
Because imitation is a profound form of self-restriction.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
When you try to mimic someone else's path to success,
Yeah.
you are choosing artificiality over your natural capabilities.
Yeah.
Psychologically speaking, mimicking someone else severs you from your own strengths. You just can't reach a state of flow or true excellence if your brain is constantly split between performing an action and monitoring how well you are imitating someone else's version of that action.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Think about the sheer caloric energy we expend trying to be something we aren't.
It's staggering.
It's like we spend our whole lives furiously trying to paint our petals red because society or the algorithm told us that red is currently trending.
Yes.
We buy the red paint. We stress out when the paint inevitably chips. We hide our true color, entirely forgetting that we were born a perfectly good, highly resilient white wildflower, and maintaining that layer of paint prevents us from actually absorbing any sunlight.
That analogy perfectly captures the modern ego. You become a mediocre, exhausted copy instead of an optimized original.
Yeah, just an exhausted copy.
And the relief for you, the listener, is internalizing the why behind this philosophy. The text is asking you to grow and fade with the flow of nature without forcing anything.
Right.
Your true value comes from simply existing as you are, optimizing the specific nutrient pathways that make you a great white wildflower.
And dropping the red paint naturally kills your need for an audience, which brings us right back to the thought experiment we started with.
Oh, right, the secret achievement.
Exactly. The essay points out that humans desperately seek recognition, respect, admiration, and praise. We are practically addicted to external validation.
We really are.
But nature's creations thrive joyfully, even in complete solitude. They never act just to extract approval from an observer. A flower blooming in an unreachable, hidden mountain valley is just as vibrant as one planted in the center of a crowded city park.
Which means if you achieve that massive career milestone, and you can't tell anyone about it, it should still feel profoundly fulfilling. By internalizing that kind of humility, you free yourself from the tyranny of the audience. When your self-worth is untethered from being perceived, your energy returns to you.
It's like taking the emulator offline.
Exactly. You are no longer performing your life as a spectator sport. You are simply living it from the inside out.
That brings up a massive friction point, though.
Okay, what is it?
Well, if we stop performing, if we completely drop the social mask and stop trying to seek approval, how do we handle modern interactions? Because human society is fundamentally built on relationships. We aren't solitary mountains. If I stop caring about how I'm perceived, doesn't that just lead to total isolation?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text isn't advocating for isolation or an anti-relationship stance at all.
Okay, good.
It draws a very sharp, crucial line between natural interconnectedness and forced manipulative relationships.
What's the difference, practically?
Well, human society emphasizes networking. We forge connections, we curate who we know, we take people out for coffee because we think they might be useful to our careers in 5 years.
Right, the classic picking your brain coffee meeting.
Exactly. We leverage relationships for personal gain. Nature, on the other hand, doesn't expend effort to force connections.
So the connections just happen naturally. The essay points out that things in nature are deeply interconnected, but they thrive on their own vitality, nurtured simply by the sun, the moon, and the environment. It talks about coexistence, noting that grass, trees, mountains, and stars coexist without bullying or oppressing one another.
Right. Think about a thriving forest ecosystem. The trees, the fungi, the soil, they're all intimately connected.
Yeah, like a giant web.
They trade nutrients, they share water, they support the whole.
Yeah.
But a pine tree isn't like networking with a mushroom to manipulate it.
It's not trying to get the mushroom to invest in its startup.
Exactly. It isn't hiding its true intentions. The connection is authentic and based entirely on mutual existence and mutual benefit, not extraction.
That is such a powerful contrast to modern networking. We've allowed platforms like LinkedIn to turn human connection into a transactional commodity.
We really have.
We interact with people as stepping stones. And the essay specifically brings up transparency here, noting that nature is perfectly candid.
Yeah, that part is really striking.
It even mentions that animals, when mating, follow principles of mutual consent and never force their will upon others. The contrast is humans who constantly hide their true intentions. We smile when we are angry or feign interest just to get a foot in the door.
Because when human relationships become fundamentally about extraction, asking, what can I get from you, or how can your status advance my status, they become deceitful.
And deceit is ugly.
Right. Remember the author's core baseline. Deceit is ugly. If you stop trying to extract value from people, you can coexist freely without grievance. You interact with your colleagues, your friends, and your family honestly, transparently, and without trying to force them to bend to your will. You coexist side by side, just like the mountain and the river.
That completely flips the script on social anxiety.
Doesn't it?
If you enter a room without an ulterior motive, without needing anyone to do anything for you, the pressure evaporates.
Totally.
And stripping away those manipulative social tendencies naturally shifts our focus away from the other things we obsess over, namely hoarding resources and stressing about the future.
This transition into the concepts of time and scarcity demands the biggest paradigm shift from the reader, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
Humans are constantly burdened by anxiety about tomorrow. We are obsessed with endless preparations, anticipating every possible disaster, and stockpiling against hypothetical threats.
It's exhausting.
It is. Nature simply doesn't operate on this frequency.
The essay says nature immerses itself completely in the present moment, entirely enjoying its time, which it refers to as achieving a state of oneness with the Tao.
It's worth pausing to define that, actually, because the Tao isn't just a mystical buzzword here.
Right, it has a specific meaning.
In this context, the Tao represents the natural, effortless, uncalculated flow of the universe. To be at one with it means your actions are done for their own sake, in the present, not as a calculated investment for a future payout.
And the author ties this effortless flow directly to selfless giving without greed. The text notes that grass unfurls simply to embellish nature if it has water and sunlight. Wildflowers spread their fragrance without measuring who gets to smell it.
They just do it.
Yeah. And the most striking example is the birds. After birds satisfy their hunger, they don't start hoarding extra seeds in a panic about a hypothetical famine next winter.
Right.
Instead, they sing and dance in the forest, composing what the text calls divine symphonies. They don't complain about unfairness, they don't blame their destiny, and crucially, they don't demand any returns for the gifts they give to the world.
It's a beautiful image.
It is. But so what does this all mean for us functionally? Because
Mm.
am I supposed to empty my 401k? Does living in the present moment mean we just stop preparing for the future entirely, quit our corporate jobs, and go sing in the woods like the birds? Because while that sounds like an incredible weekend, it feels like a genuinely terrible retirement plan.
This raises an important question about how to functionally apply spiritual metaphors to a modern economic reality.
Yeah, how do we bridge that gap?
The text is not advocating for reckless financial behavior or ignoring your basic survival needs.
Okay.
It's advocating for a magnanimity of spirit by attacking the ROI mindset, the return on investment mentality.
Oh, that makes sense.
Look at where our anxiety about the future actually originates. It rarely stems from a genuine lack of current survival resources. It usually stems from a psychological fear of scarcity, a
Right.
feeling that we never have enough, and a constant low-grade grievance that life isn't giving us what we feel we are owed based on our efforts.
That is the trap of the ROI mindset. We have commodified our own kindness and our own effort. We give our time at work and we expect a promotion. We give affection to a friend and we expect a specific type of loyalty in return. We are constantly calculating the exchange rate of our actions.
And when that calculation falls short, we feel cheated.
Yeah.
Nature gives selflessly and expects nothing in return, which makes it immune to feeling cheated.
Yeah.
A flower doesn't withhold its scent today because the bees didn't say thank you yesterday.
Wow.
The bird sings because it is its biological nature to sing, not because it expects the forest to pay it an appearance fee for the concert.
It's the ultimate release of expectations. If you do something beautiful or kind or excellent simply because it is your natural state to do so, you can never be disappointed by the reaction.
Right.
You never feel that sting of unfairness because the act of giving was the reward itself. You aren't hoarding your talents, your ideas, or your kindness for some future date when the audience might be bigger or the payout might be more profitable.
Exactly.
You are just unfurling your leaves today, right now, with the sunlight you currently have.
And that is how you actually achieve that oneness with the Tao we discussed.
Yeah.
When you are no longer mentally living in a hypothetical future, constantly calculating your next move, and you are no longer carrying the heavy baggage of resentments from past transactions that didn't go your way,
Yeah.
you are finally truly present.
Your cognitive load drops.
It totally drops. You are experiencing life exactly as it happens, rather than managing a portfolio of anxieties.
It really brings the entire philosophy full circle.
It does.
Whether you are looking at a wildflower blooming in the wilderness without an audience, a bird singing after a meal without hoarding for tomorrow, or a blade of grass simply growing towards the sun without trying to manipulate the soil, the ultimate takeaway is the same.
Yep.
All of this deceit, this pretense, this constant performing, calculating, and comparing that we do it is fundamentally ugly. And it is draining us of our actual vitality. Being natural, being unapologetically, genuinely yourself without demanding the universe applauds you for it is simply the most beautiful, sustainable way to live.
It is a profoundly powerful synthesis of how to reclaim our energy. And actually, there's a fascinating final detail from the text that we should point out.
Oh, what's that?
The author deliberately notes that this ultimate truth, that dropping artificiality is the path to peace, is echoed by the teachings of Christ, Buddha, and celestial beings alike across history.
You see these identical themes of humility, radical presence, and shedding the ego across almost all major historical wisdom traditions.
Yeah. And it's important to note here, impartially, that while the text relies on these specific spiritual and religious figures to bolster its point, the underlying philosophical takeaway of dropping our artificiality applies to everyone.
Absolutely.
You do not need to subscribe to any particular religious framework to see the psychological value in putting down the heavy burden of the social mask.
Right.
The mental relief of no longer pretending to be something you're not is a universal human biological mechanism. The lesson of the flower is accessible regardless of your personal spiritual background.
You don't have to be a theologian to know that running that social emulator all day makes you miserable.
Exactly.
It's just brilliant psychology wrapped in beautiful poetry. Well, we want to thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today into a text that challenges so much of what modern society tells us is necessary for success.
It really is the kind of philosophical framework that forces you to ruthlessly evaluate how you are spending your cognitive and emotional energy every single day.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Great.
We talked at the very beginning about how exhausting the modern checklist of life can be and how desperately we try to control our environments.
Yeah.
Well, if nature's default state is harmony and genuine expression, take a real honest look at the areas of your life that feel the most exhausting, chaotic, or friction-heavy right now. Are those the areas where you are trying to force a blossom that isn't naturally yours? Are you spending all your precious energy trying to paint your petals red for an audience that isn't even paying attention?
That's a great question.
What would happen if, just for today, you decided to drop the paintbrush, stop checking for applause, and just let the seasons change on their own?